Hey, this is Paige Ruderman, and this is the So Rude podcast. Welcome to the show. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the So Rude podcast. I'm Paige Ruderman, and I am so excited to welcome a special guest to the show. Mariano Mallia is a Nashville-based singer-songwriter originally from our shared hometown of Wilmington, Delaware. His story is one of incredible perseverance, including rebuilding his voice and his career after a 2019 vocal injury. Since that comeback, he's cleared over 1 million streams, was named an iHeart Media Nashville's Next Artist, and was recognized as a finalist last year in the Tennessee Songwriters Week Showcase. Despite growing up in the same town, we actually didn't cross paths until we both moved to Nashville, Tennessee. I'm looking forward to catching up, chatting music and production, and exploring his latest single, The More Things Seem to Change. Mariano, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Paige. I appreciate the kind introduction.
Of
Thank you.
course. It's nice to highlight all of the success and exciting things we get to do. I feel like we can get wrapped up in the day to day, but sometimes it's nice to be like, yeah, I did do all that, you know?
Yeah, you got to celebrate the little wins, you know?
100%.
It's
So I
important.
know I shared a little bit about your background, but is there anything else I may have missed?
Well, you forgot to mention that we went to the same high school.
We did Concord High School, but did we go at
Yes.
the same time? I'm
I
not
th I
sure.
think we missed each other by 1 year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
So I was there. Oh God, now I might bleep this out. I was there from 2007 to 2011.
Yeah. I went, I think 20, well, I graduated 2014. So what would that be? 20, oh,
2010, 11,
yeah.
12, 13. It would no, you would have started the fall after I left.
Okay.
Because you would have started in 2011, 11, 12, 13, 14, right?
Okay.
Or maybe
I
I'm
think
wrong.
so. Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
man, so we never, and we went to the same college. Because didn't you go to
Yeah.
University of Delaware?
Yes.
A lot of chances to cross paths
But
before the coffee shop in Nashville.
yeah. Well, it's actually funny because it was your sister that connected us. And I knew of your sister, but I was never close with your sister. I don't think we had ever even talked, but we were connected on social media. And so when I was moving to Nashville, I put out a little post that just said, "Hey, moving to Nashville. If anyone knows anyone I can connect with while I'm there, reach out." And your sister was like, "Hey, my sister's actually a songwriter in Nashville." And that's how it all happened.
What are the odds?
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's so crazy. And I can't wait to dig into what brought you to Nashville and all the things that have happened since then. But we mentioned we both grew up in Delaware. What was it like growing up there, and how did you find your way into music?
Yeah. I love Delaware. I know there's a lot of haters, a lot of hometown haters, but I really are you one of them?
No, no, I was going to say they're wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I like Delaware. It's like it was a good place to grow up, good place to go to school. It was you're close to Philadelphia, you're close to, New York, DC, all these different places. You're close to the beaches, and actually a lot of people don't know that Delaware has a very nice beach as well. But some people don't realize that Delaware is, right on the coast and has its own little beach. So, you're close to a lot of nice things, but you also don't have the craziness of the city. Like, I wouldn't love living in Philadelphia. I was born in Philadelphia, but I'm not a big city guy. Like, I could never live in New York. I would rather not live in Philadelphia. And Delaware was like that perfect balance where you were close enough to the cities where you could get in, but you could always get out. So I really loved growing up in Delaware. And how I got into music was my parents put me into piano lessons when I was young. But funny enough, I hated piano. I didn't have the discipline to sit down and practice and really improve. So it was tough because, like I said, I was just a kid. I wanted to go outside and play, with a soccer ball or, run around or go on a bicycle. I didn't want to sit inside and play an instrument and dedicate myself. I didn't have the discipline. But then I started playing trumpet, and in middle school, I really got into trumpet. And that's where my passion for music and performance really kind of bloomed and took off. So I played trumpet all through middle school, all through high school. I even participated in like all state band, all state jazz band. I was a part of the jazz band in school. So I really um, grew a passion for jazz music, trumpet, and performing. And it really wasn't until after that, in when I graduated high school, that I started doing what I'm doing now, which is the singing, the songwriting, the production. So it was more when I was like, I would say 18 or 19, that that all started.
Oh my gosh, I'm really glad that you mentioned growing up playing trumpet. I don't know if I knew that, but I played the clarinet, so we both kind of
Nice. There you
started,
go. Band
yeah,
kids.
school band.
Yeah.
You are actually one of few guests that have come on the show that started from like a school band
Yeah.
background. Do you feel like it's helped you or like influenced writing for you at all, or do you feel like you kind of keep them in separate camps?
Well, no, I think it definitely influenced me. I don't think I would be doing what I'm doing right now if I didn't play trumpet. Because like I said, when I played piano, I had no passion for music and no passion for piano. It just like wasn't my thing. And then really in middle school, I had a band director who was a great trumpet player. And I don't know if you know Mr. Baronio.
No, where did you
He
go
was
to
at
middle
Springer
school?
Middle School.
Okay, I went to Hamby Middle School.
Okay.
See,
So,
Delaware is so small, you don't say like what city you grow up in, you just say
yeah.
where did you go to school?
Yeah. Everyone knows everyone to
Literally.
some degree.
Point in, point proven right here.
Yeah. But he was a great trumpet player, and all it took was like me hearing him play the trumpet to be like, wow, like I want to be able to do that. So I think I just had to have that vision of like, this is what it could look like if I actually dedicate myself. And I saw what he could do. And I was like, well, I want to be able to do that. So I better dedicate myself to this instrument. And so that's where it all started. And I don't think I would be like, if it wasn't for that happening, I don't think I would be here. I don't think I would have, like, my passion for music might not have grown into what it is today. So all of that early influence did influence, has influenced me and shaped me into the musician that I am. And I mean, I still love jazz music, and I don't play the trumpet as much as I used to, but I have it here. And actually, there's one song I've released called Sunflower that I actually did play the trumpet on. So,
That is so cool. You'll have to break it
yeah.
out from time to time just to be like, I know I
Yeah.
still can.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great instrument. So,
So you said your parents put you in piano lessons. Were they also, have a musical background? Like, I'm curious, like, where you got, if you got any, like, family influence as well.
yeah, so my dad actually, when he was in his 20s, he was in a band, he was writing songs, he was chasing like original music, kind of the same way that I am. So it's really nice because he really understands the passion. And, there are a lot of parents that they discourage music, or they look at it and say, well, you better figure something else out. My parents have been like all in from the beginning, even when I felt like I wasn't even good. Like I was like, I just started singing and I sound like trash, and like my parents are encouraging me to keep going, and so that was really really nice. And my mom, she's not a musician, but she loves music. She loves going to see concerts and shows. And actually my grandmother, she used to write songs. and
Really?
and I have a cassette player with all these old tapes from when she was a kid of songs that she wrote. And now my next project is going to be to take those cassettes and digitize, like get them, transfer them to digital. That way, if the tape erodes or whatever, or whatever happens, we don't want to lose those memories and those songs. So that's gonna be my next project, is getting those tapes done. But yeah, she used to love to sing and write songs, and still sings now and then. So yeah,
That is so cool. And I love that the technology exists now to take something that, might there might not be as much tech to actually enjoy those tapes in the future. And you're like, yeah, I'm going to take the time to actually like preserve them and who
yeah,
knows, maybe use them in a future project. You never
yeah.
know.
You never know. Maybe sample them.
That's so cool. And really cool that you have family that had similar passions and similar interests. And
Yeah,
what you said about how special it is to have parents that like really support you in your vision. That's super super cool.
Yeah, for sure. And then one other note too, I guess, is that the um the first laptop that I started recording music on, it was a laptop that was passed down from my brother, and he had a software called FL Studio on it because he was messing around with making beats and doing little instrumentals and working on music. And so when I got that computer that was passed down, it had that software, and that was the first software that I started recording on. So, like, that's another interesting thing. Like, I feel like even my brother is really talented with music. He just never wanted to pursue it professionally. He just did it more as a hobby.
It sounds like there are all these like little steps that kind of got you to where you are now. Like your grandma loves to write, and then your dad was really passionate about music, and then your brother
Yeah.
had the laptop, and like all of that led to
Yeah.
today where you're like truly pursuing the artist dream, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's like all these little pieces come together, you know? It's
Yeah.
crazy.
So, talk to me about when you got more into the songwriting side of things because now as an artist like you're writing your own songs, you're putting them out. Like where did it go from like I'm playing trumpet in jazz band in Allstate
Yeah.
into I'm pursuing music as an artist in Nashville?
Yeah, well, it started as I started by recording instrumentals because I didn't think I could sing, and I had never sung, like I didn't sing anything in the past. So I was always actually looking for somebody who wanted to sing because I had started playing guitar, I had started recording some stuff, so I was looking for a singer. And it became so hard to find a reliable person who wanted to sing. So at a certain point I just decided, okay, I'm going to try it and I'm going to just going to start singing. And so that's where it really all started was me taking that step and saying, I'm just going to sing it myself. Because at first, all the music was just instrumental. But then I started singing, and the natural progression of it was once I started singing, I started writing. So I was doing, I started learning some covers too, obviously, and some songs that I had known and that I liked. So I started learning those, but then I just naturally started writing, started recording music, and started making original songs. And at this point, that was like almost 10 years ago. So
Wow.
it was a long process. At the time, like you mentioned, we went to school together. I was in school, and so I was focused on a lot of different things, not just music. I was also, taking classes and doing all these different things. So it wasn't like all my time and attention was on music, but that's really where it all started. And then, after graduation, I started going even harder on music. And in fact, when I first graduated, I was just performing full time live. So I was just doing gigs full time and then working, doing stuff in the studio. I had started a little band too. So I had a band that was playing my original music, and that was nice. So that's kind of where it, like, a little bit of the progression of it. So,
That's so cool. So when you said you were performing and like hitting it hard, is that in the Delaware area? In that like Delaware, Philadelphia, Jersey?
yeah, yep, I was doing stuff in Delaware, Wilmington, Newark. I did a few shows in Maryland. I was doing stuff in, yeah, Philly, other cities in Pennsylvania, some stuff in New Jersey, down at the Jersey beaches. So I was kind of, yeah, all over the place, just playing shows.
I know another thing that's a huge part of your story and something you've shared, and I know I hinted at it briefly in the intro, but there was actually a point in time when I think it was around 2019, but I want to
Yeah.
hear the story from you where
Yep.
there was actually a vocal injury, I believe. And
Yeah.
would you be open to talking to us a little bit about what that was
Yeah.
like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was actually yeah, like right at the end of 2018, early 2019. And I was uh I was performing a lot, doing these, 3-hour gigs, 3, 4 nights a week. I was practicing with a band, playing with the band, and on top of that, I was also recording a lot of music. So it was just constant vocal use. I was always using my voice, and at the end of 2018, I went from a point where, you know, I used to sing all the time and never have an issue. I felt like I could do it forever. And then slowly I started to like have some trouble where I noticed songs that used to be easy were becoming more difficult. And it got to a point where, and it all really happened in the span of a few months. Like, I would say November of 2018, I noticed like my voice would crack a couple times when I was going for certain notes. But I wasn't concerned because I was just like, oh, it's just my voice cracking. And then December, end of November, December hit, and I started to really struggle to like perform songs that, like I said, were very easy in the past. And then at the end of, I finished out December and I canceled everything in 2019 except for like maybe one or two shows I still did. Um, yeah, so 2019 I probably played two shows and then called it quits. And that was the start of a long recovery process that ultimately took me like 4 years to fully get back from. And like I said, at first it was just my voice, my singing voice, and then my speaking voice started to go too. So I was having trouble like speaking to people, especially, in maybe louder environments like in restaurants and areas where like public areas. But even like just now, like this conversation would have been challenging for me
Wow.
back when I was having that injury. So, then I was having problems with my vocal, with my speaking voice, and it was just it took a long time to recover from that. So yeah,
Wow. And it sounds like it came upon pretty quickly,
yeah,
and I imagine that must be like really like frightening because you're kind of
yeah,
like, I'm using my voice to sing. People talk all day long, but especially music's such a network town where you're talking to people in
yeah.
loud bars or, places all the time. And um did it take a while to figure out like what exactly was kind of causing some of those symptoms?
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like, I went to one doctor. I went to a few doctors actually, and uh, you know, one of the doctors looked at my voice and said like, I don't see anything wrong. Like, I think you're good to go. And I was like, well, I can't sing. Like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
So there were definitely challenges. Then I went to another doctor who, um, was one of the best doctors in the U.S. for, vocal health. Like, he had done surgeries on well-known singers and had worked with like famous artists on their voices. And so I went to him, and that was a long process of vocal therapy, speech therapy. They told me I had like a callus on my voice, which they didn't say was a nodule. They said it was what they called a callus, which I guess is smaller than a nodule. But ultimately, I had surgery on that, and
Wow.
it made it like it didn't help. It made my voice worse. So, um, I had so many so many questions during that time of like whether I had made the right choice and what was going on, and I was confused. And it's especially hard when, like if somebody else had what I had and they're not a singer, then it's like okay, because that's not your career. But I lost like my career. I was making all my money from singing, and I lost my biggest passion like all at the same time. So that's what made it even more challenging. But also it's also in those periods of extreme difficulty and struggle that you grow the most. So I look back now and I see that all of that had to happen, and it happened for a reason. And now I look back with gratitude because I think I'm a person that I am now because of everything that happened. And um, sometimes those you need a roadblock. Like if you're on one road and you're supposed to be on another road, then you need a roadblock that's going to get you off of that road. So to me, in a way, I actually call it like I consider it divine intervention in a way. Like I feel like God you know, was using that injury to mold me into the person that I am now. And if it wasn't for that injury, I might have been going down the wrong path. So I feel like there was a lot of growth in that season, and I'm thankful for that. And I don't know that I would be here in Nashville doing what I'm doing if it wasn't for that. So
Wow. And that's so powerful, like hearing you saying like, my career was singing. Like I had this dream, I had this vision for what the future looked like. And you mentioned that it was actually a couple years. It wasn't even like a short period of time in which this was impacting your day to day. Like, was there ever a moment where you were like, do I switch gears here? Like,
Yeah.
is this really not going to work? I mean, like, I think it's so powerful. You can look back now and see all the growth that has happened from there. And in the midst of it, like, that took a lot to continue
Yeah.
to push forward.
Yeah. Well, for sure. I mean, there were moments where it was hard to keep faith, especially when I'm trying to talk and I can barely even talk, right? So that was very challenging. But in a way, I think that I think that God wanted me to surrender to his will for my life. I think my whole life, or at least my whole singing career, I put all of my identity and value in being a singer. That was where I derived my identity and value from. And I think God was trying to tell me that's not your value. Your value is that you're a child of mine, made in the image of myself, in the image of God. And so I feel like in order to recover, I had to surrender and say, God, whatever your will is for my life, whether that's being a singer or not, I trust that you have a plan for me, that you put me here for a purpose, and that whether that means doing music or doing something else, I'm putting my faith and my trust in you. And really, that's where I feel like my recovery started because, like I mentioned to you, I tried everything. I tried vocal therapy, I tried speech therapy, I went to the best doctor in the US. I had surgery from that doctor, and nothing worked. Nothing seemed to fix my voice. And finally, when I just said, you know what, I'm going to step back from it all. God, whatever your will is, that's what it's going to be. That's when my recovery process started, both physically but also mentally, because it took a huge weight off my shoulders of feeling like, what am I going to do? How am I going to get my voice back? I just said, God, I'm giving this to you.
Wow. When you made that choice of like, okay, I'm gonna give up a little bit of the control here,
Yeah.
see what comes next. What were kind of some of the next steps that happened? I think once at one point in time we had talked, you had said like that's when you leaned into production or like learning
Yeah.
production. But would love to hear from you. Like, what did that next step look like?
Yeah, I mean, definitely during those 4 years, that's really when I leveled up on the production and started building my studio, started really producing for other people too, and started bringing in clients and working with other artists. And that was all I had at that point. I couldn't sing, so I was like, my only option right now is to produce and to write songs. So that's what I did. I just focused on that. It's like when I say, I surrendered, it doesn't mean I gave up. It means, I let go of what wasn't in my control, you know? And my voice, it wasn't really in my control. I was still, sure, trying to do exercises, do therapy, try and get better, but things don't always happen on the timing you want them to happen on. Sometimes God has his own timing. And in that timing, like you said, like I probably wouldn't be the producer and songwriter that I am right now if it wasn't for that injury. Because before the injury, I put so much of my focus on my voice and not so much on production and writing. So it really opened up a whole new focus, a whole new avenue for me to go into, and a lot of growth happened in that season.
Yeah. And that's so powerful for anyone listening in who might be feeling like things aren't turning out the way I planned, whether that's like from a career standpoint or a life standpoint. But what you said was kind of like, I can't control the outcome, but I can control the action. I can
Yeah.
control what I'm doing. I
Yep.
can't tell you what's going to happen at the end, but that's all I can kind of like stand behind. And I think that's really, um, that's like such a strong mindset to be able to face challenges that way.
Yeah. And another thing too is like when I get into that headspace of like, oh, why isn't this happening? Or like, why hasn't this happened yet? Or I wish I was further along. I think back to that time and I think, like, I'm probably not even supposed to be singing again. Like, I could very well still be struggling with that vocal injury and not even have been able to make a comeback and, not have ever been healed of that vocal injury. So, when I ever get into that headspace of like, why aren't things happening the way I want them to? I think like you're lucky that you even you get to go out and do this, that you even get to step on a stage and sing for people again, because there was a point in time where you couldn't do that. So you should be thankful, even though obviously you're always striving for more. You have goals, you have ambitions, yes, of course, but also be thankful for how far you've come and, where you started.
100%. And like you said, being lucky to be able to stand up on a stage and share your art, and how lucky we all are, which kind of like leads into, you live in Nashville, Tennessee now. When did you decide it was time to make the move from Delaware to Nashville?
Yeah. Well, I always had Nashville in the back of my mind, and I always wanted to move to Nashville. But at first, I didn't feel like I was skilled enough. To be honest, I had just started doing music, and I was just learning. So I didn't feel like I was at the level. And so I waited, and then I had that vocal injury shortly after. So then I was like, well, I can't move to Nashville now. I can't even sing. How am I going to communicate my ideas and write songs and perform rounds? I can't do it. So I was working a day job, and I was in that job for 2.5 years while I was recovering from the injury. And it was just those couple years were challenging because I was working all day, and then I would come home and I would be in the studio all night, and I would just repeat every single day. And I got to a point where I was like, I always dreamed of doing music full time, and if I want to do it, I think I have to take that leap and go to Nashville, because there's not enough, I had my studio in Delaware, but there wasn't enough work coming in. There wasn't, enough just to say I'm going to do music full time in Delaware. Just I didn't, I knew I had to be in a city that was more conducive to music. So I moved to Nashville with the goal of being a full time producer. And I knew that if I was going to have a chance of doing music full time, I had to go to somewhere where I was going to be able to constantly meet new musicians, artists, songwriters, people who might need my work. So that's when I moved.
Wow, I didn't realize when you moved to Nashville, it was almost a little leaning a little more towards production and like
Yeah.
really being a producer with other artists or other creatives in town.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And I mean, that's really exciting to see you now too. Like we got to meet when you first moved to town, and seeing you now, like you're working with a lot of artists. You're mastering or mixing or producing a lot of work. So, um, kudos to you for building such a network in a relatively short period of time.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's been a process, but yeah, I feel really lucky, and I feel thankful that I did make the move out here, because like I said to you, for so many years I felt like it was always in the back of my mind, but for one reason or the other I always delayed, or put it off, or said, well, why can't I just do it from Delaware? And I knew that if I wanted to grow, I had to push myself outside of my comfort zone, and that's what moving to Nashville has done. And now I look back and I say I'm really glad I did that.
That's really cool. What would be one thing that you think has like leveled up your production skills? Like whether it's something you learned prior to moving to Nashville or something you've picked up since you've been in town. Like what's like something that you think has made a really big impact to your work?
I think it's just not being afraid to go at it. And even if it sounds terrible, even if you mess up, you know, putting in that full effort. And then if it doesn't turn out the way you want, you try again. It's just, I don't even, sure, there are some people in town that they can probably on the first try just knock something out. And I think the more you do, the closer you get to that. Like I remember when I first started, it would take me forever to do a production, and now I'm, a lot quicker. But even now to this day, sometimes I'll produce something and be like, man, that's not really the way I wanted it, but let's try again. And you just keep on working. It's more about persistence than anything. I don't feel like I have this like natural talent per se that someone else doesn't have. over 10 years now almost of doing it. I just said I'm going to keep doing it. And eventually if you just stick with something for 10 years and say, cuz I think what a lot of people do is they're like, "Man, I'm terrible." They start something for the first time, and I dealt with this with singing too because I started singing at like 18 or 19 and I was like not good at it at first. And most people never make it through the not good phase. They say, "Well, maybe this just isn't for me. Maybe I wasn't born with the singing gift. Maybe it's just not for me." And uh you have to withstand that. You have to endure that period where you're not good, and then eventually you start getting better and better. But a lot of people don't make it past that period of being bad. So you just have to stick it out. And maybe part of it was because I was like blind, like I maybe somewhere deep down I thought I was good even though I wasn't. So it like I kept going, and my parents were like, "Oh, keep going, you sound great," even though I didn't think I did. But I don't know, I just kept going, and eventually over time you just if you stick with something for long enough, you're just like you figure it out and you start to get better and you start to grow. So,
Yeah, and what a great reminder that nobody just innately starts out great. You might have a
no.
little like natural born talent, but
Yeah.
it only becomes great talent with work. And I think you're right. I mean, I am definitely one of those people when something's coming to me more challenging. I'm sitting here and I'm like, well, I could be doing this other thing that I know I'm really good at. Why
Yeah.
do I want to sit here and do this thing that is kind of hard? But
Yeah.
to what you said, I think we all have a little part of us that's like, there has to be some little belief that, like, okay, I think there's a
Yeah.
little skill here. I gotta at least try.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's no different from like, planting a seed. You don't expect that in a day there's going to be a tree, you know?
Yeah.
You know that at first it's just going to be a little seedling and then a little sprout, and then it might take 5, 10 years for that thing to grow into a big tree. And it's like our music careers, or really whatever passion or pursuit you have, it's no different. It's all like that seed that, if you plant it and you take care of it and water it, it's going to grow, but don't expect it to grow overnight.
Totally. And what you said about like planting the seed and watering it, like you can water it in different ways. Sometimes it's writing, sometimes it's production, sometimes it's singing, like all of those actions. It's trumpet, it's playing around with your brother's laptop that had the
Yeah,
production software. Like all of that feeds in to feeding this little tree and or this little seed to eventually become a tree. It's like they all kind of build on top of each other.
absolutely. Yeah. And
S-
your story is kind of interesting too, because I think I remember you saying when you moved to Nashville, you had only written a couple songs, right?
Yeah.
So like and I commend you for that, because like I said, when I was early in my music career, I felt like not ready to move to Nashville, and you just kind of said, "I'm ready or not, here I come." I feel like. So that's awesome.
Well, thank you. I think I had a couple other like factors happening at the same time. Like my lease was up. I
Yeah.
had a job that allowed me to. So I had a couple things going for me that allowed me to.
Yeah.
But I think I had a similar thought to what you were saying. If there's a moment of like, if I don't do it now, I'm
When?
not gonna go. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So it's kind
Yeah.
of like, yeah, kind of taking the leap. And the good thing for me was I was kind of like, well, if it goes bad, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, you can always go home, right? Like
Yeah.
if it but you'll never regret trying and taking that leap, right? You'll regret it if you don't do it. And I think I was in the same boat, because when I was working that day job, I was like, I'm either going to stay at this day job for the rest of my life, or I'm going to take a leap and step into faith, right? And at that time at the job, they were starting to like give me more responsibility, and they were starting to say, okay, like, because at the time I was working in a financial advising office and I had all my licenses to be an advisor. Um, and they started saying, okay, well, now maybe you can start taking on some clients of your own. And I was like, once I start taking on clients, I feel like there's no going back, because now it's like that responsibility of somebody else's finances are in my hands. And it's a lot, not to say you can't go back, but it's a lot harder to leave when you have all that responsibility and people are trusting you for something. So when it got to that point, that was when I started to consider, is now the time to go to Nashville.
Yeah. Oh man, so you were like corporate. You were like finance, corporate, office, like
Yeah, well, it was a smaller company. Like we were an office of maybe 15 people, so it wasn't like a big, you know,
but you had a
a big.
desk.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah,
And hey, taking a leap of faith and saying, you know what, like this isn't filling the cup, so to speak. Like that's I give, a lot of kudos to that. That's a hard decision, but clearly one that's been exciting
yeah,
to witness.
yeah. No regrets.
Totally. And talking about the production side too, I feel like in a way that must be such a benefit here in Nashville because people talk about like the makeup of a room, like you want an artist, you want a
Yeah,
songwriter, you want a producer, like the fact that you can fit any one of those three seats must like that must be a added value to you as a songwriter or a writer or a producer here in Nashville.
yeah, yeah. I think so. I mean, for me at least, like the reason I got into production in the first place was because I wanted to be an artist, and I said, well, if I want to be an artist, I have to figure out how to record music because I didn't want to have to go to a studio and rely on somebody else and, pay studio time and maybe they're booked for 2 weeks, so you can't even get in right away. Like if I'm feeling inspired now, I want to be able to do it now. So that's why I started learning how to do it. So just that alone has been great because it's like now it was the long road because the easier way is to say, well, I don't know how to produce. I'm going to pay someone who already does it, which I think is valid too, because it's not to say everyone needs to be a producer or everyone should be a producer. But for me, taking that road and learning how to do it is beneficial now because like as you know, all the songs that I'm putting out, I produce. So I don't have to go to somebody else. Obviously I had to invest in my studio and I had to invest the time to learn how to do it. But now that I've invested that, I can actually, if I write a song, I can produce it and release it. I don't have to wait for somebody else, pay somebody else. I can do it on my own, which is an amazing blessing. And then to your point, some rooms people like to have that producer track guy. So sometimes you can sneak your way into rooms that maybe you shouldn't have business being in, but because they want somebody who, has that background and can give them a demo, they'll do that. I don't know what that's going to look like going forward with now so many people doing AI demos. I don't know if that value is still going to exist or not, and if the track guy is going to be around for much longer or like I mean the way I think about it is if people do AI demos, then it's get the best three writers in the room. Who cares about the track guy,
Mm.
because we want the best song. We don't need somebody to run tracks. We can just do an AI demo. So I think that might be the way things are heading. So I don't know how much that advantage is going to last, but in the meantime, it has been a little bit helpful being able to offer demo production and doing tracks in the room for people.
Oh my God, that's fascinating. I was not going to ask you anything AI related because I know it's like such a hot topic in the
Yeah.
Nashville. I mean, it's all over, but like especially in Nashville. But you give me hope hearing from you that you're like maybe it's going to be about the writer someday. One day it'll be about the writer.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's just crazy like to even see the progression of it from, you know, when I first heard the first AI stuff, I didn't think it sounded that good, and now it keeps getting better and better and better. So it's really hard to even say like where this whole industry is heading and where this world is heading really because it seems like this thing can displace so many people across so many different industries and where does that lead us? Where do we end up with that? I don't know.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to like dive more into that in the future when we see like what kind of like I almost feel like it was like 1.0, now we're kind of at like, 1.2 and when
Yeah,
we get to that 2.0 world, I'm going to be like, "Oh gosh, what does this new normal look like?" to your point.
yeah,
Um but one thing you were saying when you were talking before about, one of the biggest motivators behind learning production was because you wanted to be an artist and you wanted to
yeah,
release music. So I'm really excited to talk about you as an artist and You've been releasing music now for a couple years, I think
Yeah.
close to 12 to 15 songs out at this point in time.
Yeah, I think I just put out, yeah, probably 12. I don't know if it's 12 exactly. I'll have to go back and check. But yeah, since 2023, since I came back from that injury, I've put out yeah, a good deal of music. So,
That's so exciting. And you said you were writing on all of the songs and producing all of the songs as well.
yeah. Yep.
In your bio, you described yourself as a coastal folk with modern energy. And I'd love to hear from you like whether that's are you saying that that's coming from like the production side? Are you saying that's coming from the writer side? Like how are you blending those two worlds together?
I don't know, honestly. I just take all of my favorite influences and I think that's just what comes out of me. And I love so many different styles of music. I mean, I love folk music. I love folk pop music. I love country music. I like just straight up pop music. I like reggae music. I like it all. So it just kind of becomes this one big thing that it's
Like a
just what
melting
comes.
pot.
Yeah, and it's just what comes out of me. And maybe sometimes it leans in one direction a little more than the other, but it's all like my sound and kind of my influences coming into fruition into one thing. So
Okay, I have to ask, who were some of your like favorite artist influences that you listened to growing up? And
yeah,
are they different now?
some of them are different, but some of them are the same. Like I really love Jack Johnson,
Banana
Jason
pancakes.
Mraz. Yeah, Banana Pancakes, that whole album. And Jason Mraz was a big influence. He was actually the first CD that I bought was a Jason Mraz live CD. And then my parents really loved Journey, so that like Journey, Queen. So I got some of that influence in there. Um, Foreigner was another band they listened to, but I was more into like the Jack Johnson stuff, the Jason Mraz. A little later, I got into John Mayer, Shawn Mendes, and then it wasn't until like the end of high school where I started getting into country music a little bit because I was working a landscaping job, and the guy I worked with would only play country in the truck. So through that I just started like picking up on some songs that I liked. Like it was like makes me want to take a back road. It was Luke Bryan, Play It Again, maybe a few Thomas Rhett songs. I really got into the Thomas Rhett stuff, some of the Sam Hunt stuff. um, and recently I also started picking up on a lot of like Jim Croce, some James Taylor, some of the folk stuff. So I like that. I like Bob Marley too. Yeah, kind of just a whole lot of things.
Okay, I gotta tell you a crazy story. I
Yeah.
also got into country because of a part-time job.
Really?
Yep. So I had a job. I started working at Wawa after senior year of high school, like the summer between senior year of high school and like my freshman year of
That
college.
was the same with me.
Yeah, no, literally,
Yeah.
you just get a job. You're like, I have to buy books in the fall. Like, I need money to
Mhm.
do this. So I got a job, and I think now there's like a radio station that they play, but at the time, or maybe it was just the store I was at, whoever was the supervisor on shift would play what they wanted. And
Yeah.
I always got stuck working with this one manager, and he only played country. And so
Yeah.
before that summer, I mean, I had heard like Shania Twain and stuff growing up, but
Yeah.
it was not a common genre played on the radio or
No.
at home. But that summer it was all like Jason Aldean, Carrie
Yeah.
Underwood, Luke Bryan, all the classics at the time, and so that is really funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I didn't grow up listening to country. Actually, I didn't like country music. And I also feel like we came from a time when, like, now it's funny because my cousin, who's like 17, like, country music is like cool in high school now. It's like that's like he has boots and he has a hat and he goes to see like country, he goes to see like Luke Combs concerts, and now it's like cool. But when we were in high school, I felt like it wasn't cool. Like you were
No.
like weird if you liked country music. Like you were the outcast, at least from in where we were from.
Yeah.
It was more like rap and hip
Hip
hop and
hop,
like that
R&B.
kind of.
Yeah.
R&B, like that was what was like the cool kids were listening to. And if you liked country, you were like the weirdo. So,
Yeah.
not that I cared what people thought, but I just never got into country. I just like it just wasn't my thing.
Yeah. No, 100% I relate to that. Like what people were listening to, what was played on the radio and or people are talking about in class was a lot of the more, MTV. That was kind of like what, I watched a lot.
Sure.
So, yeah. Okay, so that's crazy. So that's how you kind of got into country and a lot of your influences. Another thing I was really excited to talk about today is a new song that you have coming out.
That
The
I
more things
co-wrote
seem to
with
change.
Paige Ruderman.
Win! What a win!
Yep.
Oh my gosh, tell us more.
Yeah, well, it's funny. That was our first co-write, and honestly, it might have been one of my first co-writes since when upon moving to town. And yeah, we just got together at your complex, and I remember I had the idea, like I had the guitar riff, I had that, and I think I had like the
The
pre-chorus
verse
melody.
one. Oh,
No, not even the verse. It was just the pre-chorus, and I had recently met up with a buddy of mine who I met him on my first trip ever to Nashville, and we stayed in touch ever since. And he's been in Nashville for 10 plus years. And he was saying to me, like, I'm thinking about maybe moving home. It's been a long time being here. And, like my parents are getting older and I don't spend a lot of time with them anymore. And, I have family and friends back home that I rarely get to see, that I rarely get to spend time with. And I just feel like I got to get back home. And so it was that conversation that really inspired the song. And, you know, luckily I took that idea into the perfect person who helped me to turn that idea into the song that we created. And I think it just turned like I couldn't have asked for a better session, a better outcome than what we produced that day. So props to you for you know for doing that.
oh my gosh, of course. And thank you so much for sharing the idea and like sharing the story and the inspiration. I think it was so fun getting to like hear from you who was going through like such a major change in your life. You had just moved to a new town, you're
Yeah,
building a new chapter for yourself and you're talking about like how life just continues to change on you and things are,
yeah,
different and I'm so excited about this one. We had a lot of fun writing it and
yeah.
um I'm honestly I'm curious cuz like when we wrote it, if you don't mind me sharing, it's been a little bit of time since we wrote it. How do you relate to it differently now, this concept of how things seem to change that you've been in town for a little bit?
Yeah, well, it's funny because even though it wasn't strictly about me, I felt like I always felt pieces of myself in that song. I found pieces of myself in it. And, I think it's relatable for anyone chasing whatever they're chasing, especially here in Nashville, where people move from all over the country and even the world to come here and pursue a crazy dream. It's the sacrifices that you make for chasing what you love and trying to pursue something that you're passionate about. And, we all make those sacrifices of moving away from people we love, moving away from comfort, moving away from stability, leaving jobs, leaving loved ones. And, even though I had only just moved to town when we wrote that, I still felt that. And I could, relate with my buddy who's been here for 10 years saying like, you know, maybe 10 years away from my parents and family and loved ones and friends is too much. And those are the sacrifices we make. So I definitely from the very beginning always felt that. But even now, yeah, I mean, even now maybe it relates even more looking at you see what's on social media, what's happening back at home, even events that I'm not able to make it home for, like birthdays and different celebrations and different events that I can't make it back for every single thing. And you're missing those moments that you could have had, but you're out here pursuing something else.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of creatives, that's such a relatable feeling. And you shared so beautifully how people move here from literally all over, and you're choosing that life, but you also recognize like it just means that you can't say yes to everything when, opportunities arise. And so, I was honestly so like honored and surprised when you shared that you were interested in sharing it. What about now feels like a good time for you to share this one?
Um, I think from the day we wrote it, I knew it was a great song that I wanted to put out. It's more just a matter of, since I'm kind of producing all the music, it's like if I write something, I know that it's not gonna, it might take a year. And so we wrote this one maybe, I don't know, almost a year and a half ago. And well, because I moved to town about a year and a half ago, so it was
Wow.
it was shortly after I moved, so it had to be about a year and a half ago. And I always knew that I wanted to put it out, but when I first moved here, it was so much of me trying to get my footing underneath me, and also trying to produce for other people, and trying to stay afloat by offering production service to people. So
Mm.
my music always gets pushed to the back end, because my priority is, and my obligation is, to the people who are hiring me to produce their music. So I always prioritize those projects. And that's kind of what happened. Is I said, well, I just left a full-time job to move to Nashville. I better get to work. And so that's what I did. And some projects get pushed to the back burner until I have more time. And so I had started producing it probably over, I don't know, I started producing it a while ago, but it was a slower process. And it just, now I got to a point in, I think it was December, where I was just like, I have to just get this one done. It's so close. And the one thing that was still bothering me were the drums. And I felt like the drums, I just wasn't happy with how they had come out. And I said, I need to figure this out. And so I just put my head down, and I just went all in, and said, this song needs to come out this year. I can't keep pushing this off. And it's a great song. It's going to impact a lot of people. People are going to relate to it and connect to it. And I know that because I relate and connect to it. And, if it's hitting me that way, then I know it's going to hit other people that way. And so I knew I had to just finish it and get it done. And that's what I did.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited for everyone to listen to it. And of course, all links will be down below in the description. And, but I think that's I think that was powerful to hear you say, like, working as a producer for other artists, like, you have kind of like a hierarchy of priorities just due to like natural life, but not wanting to leave your artistry behind. And you've
Yeah.
had a lot of like really great songs come out. I think
Thank you.
Undertow is like one of my absolute
Thanks.
favorites.
Thank you. I
Do you,
appreciate that.
yeah, that one is so hooky, and I love like the beach vibe of it. And I
Yeah.
think you've really honed in on a sound that's like really authentic to you. Like each song feels like it fits within the same project for an
Thank
artist,
you.
which is so cool.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
You're
Because sometimes I
welcome.
struggle with that. Sometimes, because like I said, I'm inspired by so much music that sometimes I feel pulled in so many directions that I'm like, does this still feel cohesive? And sometimes I wonder that. So,
Yeah, and finding your stamp of like whether it's like lyric or the melody choices or the, instrumentations that you choose. Do you think, because I think we shared it somewhere around the 12 song mark, is there any song from your catalog that you think is like a hidden gem? Like people haven't latched onto it in a way that you think is really gonna, connect when the time comes?
I think I think I have two that, well, I think, like, I love Undertow. That's like one of my favorite songs that I've released. And that one actually has gotten, out of all the songs I've released, it's gotten the most traction and attention on, social media. It had a little bit of a run a couple years back. And, I still feel like when I post that song, people really like it. Or when I perform it, people really like it. Um, but I would say, maybe a song that's like flown under the radar a little bit is a song called The Search for More. And that's a song that, you know, I don't know. There's something about it that for me, it's just it's a really meaningful song that I always loved, and you know, that's one that stuck with me. One I released last year, "The Road Is Always Better." I always felt like that was like I felt like that was a song that should have maybe gotten more. I hate to say should have because it's like, it is what it is, but I feel like, and you never know too,
You
because
never
sometimes
know.
you release a song and you hear about these songs that they sit there for a couple years, and then maybe one video or one sync placement or one whatever, and all of a sudden people are listening to it. So I know people who they have songs from that they released 5 years ago that just now are starting to get traction. So you never know, but "The Road Is Always Better" is a song that I always thought, like, I feel like this song could get traction. Um, so that's a good one, I think. And then I know you asked for one, and I'm gonna do one more, but
No, go for it.
another
My
one,
whole catalog, like every song I've released, actually.
everything, right? I'm so humble, right? No, but another
I asked. It was my fault.
another one's a song called "Lorraine" that I put out in 2023, and it's more of a acoustic singer-songwriter vibe, but that song is just really meaningful to me, and I think it's just a really like beautiful song that I think a lot of people could connect with, and that could be a hidden gem in my catalog.
Totally. And
So,
of course, all of Mariano's songs and his links are going to be down below. So like I encourage you checking out all of those.
thank you.
Um, and so much of what you've shared tonight, Mariano, is like so powerful for songwriters or artists or even other producers who are tuning in, who, everything from like sometimes roadblocks come up because that's life's way of putting you on the right path and
Yeah,
so many other gems. But I'm curious, what's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
that I've ever gotten. Hmm. Well, you know what's interesting? When this is something that stuck with me. When I first moved to town, I met a songwriter who had had moderate success, and I think he actually had a single that either was gold or platinum maybe. And I met him in town, and he said to me, "Don't have a plan B, because if you have a plan B, you're gonna take it. So don't have a plan B." That was something, and I don't know if that's maybe it's not the best advice because it probably is good to have some kind of safety net. But his point was like go all in on plan A. And I think that's really powerful. I think a lot of people are maybe afraid to go all in on plan A. I know a lot of people who they have a dream or they have something that they've always wanted to pursue, and something's holding them back, and it's like you have to live life with no regrets, and in order to do that you have to go all in on whatever it is that's calling you, and whatever it is that you're most passionate about. So I think that was really good advice, or maybe it was bad advice, but I take that advice, and I think the sentiment of what he was saying is really good advice, like go all in on what you're most passionate about.
Yeah. Like if you stop, like then it's definitely not going to be a yes.
Right, exactly. Or actually, something my dad always says is the answer is definitely no if you don't ask.
Hmm.
So that always inspires me, especially, going out in town, and, you try and talk to some people, like you try and talk to some publishers or managers or whoever it is, or, songwriters, and, not everyone's going to want to give you the time of day. Not everyone's going to meet up with you for coffee. Not everyone's going to want to write with you. Not everyone is going to be interested in what you're working on. And that advice from my dad has really helped me in this town, because you're just constantly being told no, or being put off, or being put on the back burner, and feeling like you've been forgotten about. And it's like, well, yeah, that's going to happen, but guess what? If I don't ask, then it's definitely a no. So I have to ask for the things I want, and then if it's a no, go on and ask the next person, right? Go find the next person to ask. So it's that's helped me too.
Yeah. And that's I love that. I'm gonna have to keep that one in the back pocket for if it's been a rough day. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
and if hey, you might get a yes. You never know.
Yeah, and you will eventually, if you ask, if you if you ask the question enough times, eventually, if you knock on enough doors, one's going to open, right? Maybe 99 don't open, but maybe one does, right? So, and I've definitely seen that. Like I've seen, a lot of people that disregard you or don't get back to you or say no. But then all it takes is that one person who's willing to meet up with you or willing to listen or, willing to get in the room with you. And that one thing can change everything. So you can't get discouraged by the no's. And as hard as it is, because I feel discouraged at times, there are plenty of times where I get discouraged, but you have to have that mindset of like, no, like that's just part of the process. And some doors are meant to stay closed. If God's not opening a door, maybe there's a reason it's not supposed to be open, and maybe there's a better door He's saving for you, or a different door that He's saving for you. So, you gotta trust God's plan too.
I love that. Oh my gosh. Well, it sounds like so many great nuggets have been shared tonight for artists and songwriters and producers alike. Um, the More Things Seem to Change is out now, the latest
Yeah.
single from Mariano Mallia. What else is going on for you right now? Where can people either find you this, upcoming season, or where can they find you online?
Yeah, so all my social medias are Mariano Mallia, so you can search that. And I know Paige, you mentioned there might be some links below, so you can find those there. My website, marianomallia.com. I also have an email list you can sign on if you'd like to receive email updates, and that's you can also find on my website. Other than that, I'm trying to play a lot more live shows. So I did a little tour last year, and I'll be touring again this summer, and I'll be doing a lot of shows back home in Delaware. So I always love getting home and playing some hometown shows. I'll also be playing in my first Key West Songwriters Festival, so I'm looking forward
Heck
to that.
yeah.
That'll be a lot of fun, and yeah, so I'd love to either connect with you on social media or in person. If I'm playing near you, I would love to meet you.
Oh my gosh, I love how you always like make sure to honor the hometown. Like you play
Yeah,
shows in Delaware all the time.
yeah, you have to. I mean, it's you gotta have some hometown pride.
100%. And I might be a little biased, but if you're looking for super awesome production, also reach out to
Thank
Mariano.
you.
He's great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Of
Always
course.
happy to help.
And for everyone tuning in, if this is your first time listening to the So Rude podcast, thank you so much for tuning into the show and listening to the awesome stories and tips and tricks that Mariana has shared with us. It's truly by your supporting of this indie show that we're able to bring on the incredible guests that are willing to share their stories and their messages and just help keep us inspired on all of our own journeys. So if you're not already, please make sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or YouTube, wherever you choose to listen to this show. You can find us on social media at sorude.podcast. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in. I truly appreciate it. I hope you have a fantastic day. Bye now.
And real quick, I just want to say shout out to Paige for creating this platform for songwriters, producers, artists to get out here and talk about their music and talk about what they're doing. You're really doing a great service for people. And, I just want to say from all the artists that have worked with you that, we really appreciate everything you're doing.
Oh my gosh, thank you. That means a lot. I'm so
Yeah.
glad
And thanks for
it's been
having me.
great. Happy to have you. All right. Bye guys.
Thanks, Paige. Bye.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you can stay up to date with every episode. See you next time.